Sports bettors, you'll go bust without proper bankroll management, even if you have winning picks. Did you hear that? Even with winning picks, you'll still go bust with bad bankroll management. And that's not by accident, that's by design. In this video, I'm revealing the secret bankroll math used by professional sports bettors to maintain a permanent edge against the sports books. After watching this video, you'll know exactly what your bet size should always be. You'll know the 95% rule. It's the most important rule in bankroll management, yet only about 5% of bettors know it. We'll break down the science and the psychology of losing streaks, and after today, you'll never go bust again due to a losing streak. I'm JV Miller with ProfessionalGambler.org. More professional and sharp bettors subscribe to my private podcast and newsletter than any service in the world. My family's been betting on sports professionally for 3 generations. I've got good news. Bet sizing is very simple. It requires no complicated calculations or computations or criterions. That's all hogwash. In fact, lots of bankroll management systems you'll hear about have been implanted into the sports bettor community to give the sportsbooks an unfair advantage over you, so don't fall for it. There are some very simple steps you can take to counteract all the bad out there. The objective when sizing our bets correctly is to ensure that we're growing our bankroll as aggressively as possible while not being exposed to too much risk. We must also make sure that our break-even percentage stays low. Let's unmask how real professional bettors size their wagers. Most professional sports bettors use a simple flat betting system, and you should too. The best and most popular flat betting system is the Miller flat betting system. We're the Millers who created it in the early 2000s. It's free, by the way. It's not something that we sell. Anyone can follow it, and more pro bettors do today than ever before. When you adopt the Miller flat betting system, it takes the guesswork out of everything. It works in the background, always protecting you from risking too much money while growing your bankroll as aggressively as possible. The best thing about it is you don't spend any time or energy focusing on bankroll management. Bankroll management is boring. I'd rather be focusing on the sports action, on shopping lines, watching for injuries, monitoring the headlines, researching action for the next day, etc., etc. We advise that you risk no more than 2% per wager, never exceeding 2% to avoid inevitable losing streaks. A true flat betting system requires that you bet the same dollar amount every day. You don't refigure the 2% every day. Whenever you start with a new bankroll, take 2% of that amount, and that's the dollar amount you'll bet with on every wager that you make. Doesn't matter the league, your type of wager, or your confidence level. If a wager is worth investing in, it deserves the same stake as everything else, no more, no less. I realize this is different than most forms of investing, but it's an important component of building wealth in the sports betting market. If you wish to grow your bankroll, and almost everyone does in the beginning, the Miller flat betting system does this as aggressively as possible without exposing you to unacceptable risk. We use a plateau system. Every time your bankroll increases 25%, which we call a plateau, you reset the bet size to that new amount, and then you start over. In no time at all, you'll begin to benefit from the effects of compounding. We never lower our bet size, even during losing streaks. Reducing bet size after a series of losses increases the break-even percentage and makes it harder to recover. For example, if you lose 10 bets at $2,000 a bet and you lower your wager to $1,800, you'll need to win 12.2 wagers to catch back up. This obliterates your break-even percentage. Now, once your bankroll and your bet size are as high as you like, 25% plateaus become paydays. Losing streaks. Understanding and preparing for them. This is really what bankroll management is all about. If you wondered why we only risk 2% of our bankroll per wager, this is why. All of it's connected and interrelated, of course. But losing streaks are really what bankroll management is intended to deal with. Losing streaks are the #1 reason sports bettors go bust. Even with the 55% edge, the laws of binomial distribution guarantee that you'll encounter a losing streak of 8, 9, or even 10 losses in a row several times a year. This graph shows the binomial distribution of possible outcomes when you line up 21 bets. So how many winners can you expect in the next 21 bets? With a 55% winning percentage, the most likely outcome is 12 and 9. That will happen more than any other outcome over the long term, but it will only occur about 17% of the time. That's just 1 in 6 times. 5 times out of 6, another outcome will occur. And while some of those outcomes are much better, some of them aren't. But make no mistake, the whole time with the 55% edge, regardless of which end of the binomial distribution you find yourself on at that moment, just chill. You're more than doubling your bankroll. if you have a 55% edge. This is why we bet no more than 2% of our bankroll per wager. You'd have to be down 50 bets to go bust, and while that's not impossible, it is very, very unlikely. Now, to illustrate what can be expected from having a winning percentage of 55%, we have often used the analogy of 1,000 marbles in a sack. 550 green marbles for winners and 450 red marbles for losers. Your job is to draw a marble from the sack without peeking, note whether it's a green marble, a winner, or a red marble, a loser, replace it in the sack, and repeat the process. Given enough draws from the sack, it's obvious you're guaranteed to pick more winners than losers. After all, every time you reach into the sack, you have a 55% expectation of winning and only a 45% expectation of losing. Trouble is, those 450 red marbles can be a real pain in the neck. It's amazing how many losers you can draw out over any sequential 10 or 20 times. You're absolutely guaranteed to have losing streaks. When things take a turn for the worse, you don't panic and start changing your methodology and start questioning all your life decisions. You have to remind yourself, even on losing days, you're doubling your bankroll. Losing streaks are not a reflection of your sports betting ability. They are the rules of the road. Since we never know when we'll get hit with a losing streak, we must remain in a defensive posture at all times. We must be prepared to encounter a losing streak at any moment. Keeping our bet size to 2% max is the magic number. Risking more than 2% on any one wager is way too risky. Losing streaks are unavoidable. Likewise, you'll have winning streaks, and these fluctuations can wreak havoc on your bankroll, especially if bet sizes are inconsistent. It would be wonderful if our bankrolls increased predictably and smoothly week by week, but that's just simply not the way it works. We're not dealing with an escalator moving smoothly and predictably upward. We're dealing with a pogo stick bouncing crazily up a long, uneven grade.
Told y'all.
My father used to say surprises are for birthday parties and Cracker Jack, not sports betting. And know how true this is. And it brings us to our next bankroll management component, which is knowing what to expect and being prepared emotionally, professionally, and financially for a losing streak. Nobody likes to be surprised in the course of their sports betting. Surprises are almost never good ones. If you know what to expect, there will be minimal surprises. A big part of being a successful bettor is psychological and knowing what to expect. Smart sports betting bankroll management is all about understanding what's coming, knowing what to expect, what it looks like, and being unsurprised when things suddenly turn really good or really bad. It's about not going into panic mode when panic mode is what a normal person would do when faced with the situations that sports bettors will face. The only way a normal person would not go into panic mode in these situations is if they knew in advance the situations were coming and they expected them and they knew how to handle them. The most important rule in all of sports betting when it comes to bankroll management is the 95% rule. Every sports bettor should know it, but almost none do. It's a great lesson in knowing what to expect. Even with a 55% winning expectation overall, you will have less bankroll than you've recently had in the past 95% of the time. 19 out of 20 days, you will awake in the morning with a bankroll lower than it was just a few days ago. That's how bankrolls grow. You can't have a new high every day. But if you're not aware of this 95% rule, the psychology can become your biggest obstacle. So that's right, less than 5% of the time can we expect to set an all-time high with our bankroll. Only once, on average, every 20 days, will we see a new peak with our bankroll. It won't be exactly once every 20 days, of course, but this should give you an idea of the parameters we're dealing with. It's essential to our well-being that we recognize this fact. Like it or not, we must accept that such a condition exists and that it's wholly normal. It's dictated by the mathematics of the situation. By recognizing and accepting that this condition exists, we can better deal with that nagging feeling of having to do something to catch up. Even when we're showing a profit over the last couple months, if our bankroll is less than it was yesterday or last week, we tend to get that knot in the pit of our stomach that reminds us that we're behind. That knot in your stomach is not conducive to clear thinking. It's the first step to a feeling of desperation. I hope that you like this video so far. I try to give practical, straightforward advice that genuinely helps you. I don't make a lot of videos, so every like and subscribe I get goes a long way. And if you think you may benefit from joining our community of pro and sharp bettors and hearing from me every morning in a private podcast wherein I reveal my bets for the day and the betting formulas and systems that I used, It's the best way to learn how to bet on sports for profit. Just go to my platform, professionalgambler.org. Here's an example of how a bankroll grows. The red circles are new bankroll highs. They don't occur very often. Most of the time, we'll have less in our bankroll than we had at some recent time. While flat betting at 2% may seem boring compared to some progressive or regressive systems promising quick riches, it's the only approach that works. Professional sports bettors must understand and respect this fundamental truth. Do not let misinformation come between you and your bankroll. Keep your guard up and your head on straight. Successful betting requires a certain degree of street smarts. All because it's what everyone believes doesn't mean it's true. Be suspicious of everything you see and hear. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So what's the worst losing streak you've ever had? Tell me in the comments below. I read every comment. No matter how bad your longest losing streak was, it couldn't have been any worse than what is known as the worst losing streak in history. It occurred in Las Vegas in 1997. The professional handicapper was Tony Diamond. Tony had a radio show and was well respected. He was a good handicapper, a good sports bettor for many years. On his radio show in 1997, Tony was sailing along with a winning percentage against NBA at 59% when he hit the mother of all losing streaks, an unbelievable string of 27 straight losses. It made Tony more famous than ever. A math professor from the University of Nevada at Las Vegas figured Tony's odds of going 0-27 at something akin to 100 million to 1. Stephen Nover, a reporter for the Las Vegas Sun, wrote an article about the streak. As for our worst losing streak, in 1985, our picks went 0-13 in week 3 of NFL. That's right, 0 wins and 13 losses. It was the worst beating of our life. Thank God I was only 10 years old when it happened. I remember it as plain as day. Your long-term goal is to be able to keep picking from the sack enough times so that the streaks will even out. With 550 winners and 450 losers in the sack, you must eventually pull more winners than losers. That's the law of probabilities. What happens over a dozen or 2 pulls can't and won't dramatically change the long-term results, but you can certainly experience a bumpy ride over the short term. The real key to a relaxed professionalism is in having done enough research and having had enough experience to be confident that the sack of marbles does indeed contain more winners than losers. Once you're absolutely positive of that, your very next goal is to make certain no one can stop you from drawing from the sack. You want to draw from that sack as often as possible. With a solid edge, you must inevitably draw more winners than losers. Strangely enough, the person most likely to stop you from drawing from the sack is you. If the size of your bets are too high in proportion to your bankroll, you will be forced to stop drawing by a short-term losing streak. Sooner or later, if your bets are too high in relation to your bankroll, you'll go broke, even though you have a clear long-term advantage. Yes, 100% ROI is realistic in sports betting. We average around 1,000 bets per year. When risking 2% per wager 1,000 times, this means we risk 2,000% of our bankroll. This is one of the key advantages that makes sports betting such a great return on investment. Unlike other forms of investing where you park your money somewhere and it just sits there slowly collecting some interest, hopefully, we bet the same money 20 times in 1 year. Your money works a lot harder for you in the sports betting market. So if your bankroll is $1 million, you will trade with $20 million over the next 12 months. If your bankroll is $5,000, you will trade with $100,000 over the next 12 months. If your bankroll is $100,000, you will trade with $2 million over the next 12 months. Here's how it would look if you had a $100,000 bankroll. You begin with a 2% unit. That's the dollar amount from that first day of betting when you launched a new bankroll. So $2,000 will be your exact bet for all bets. $2,000 to win $1,820 after the VIG. We win 550 bets and lose 450. As for the 550 winners, the sportsbook returns my 550 units staked, plus my winnings, which are 501. No, not 550. Remember, there's the VIG. 550 units plus 501 units is 1,051 units. I started with 1,000 units. Therefore, I profited 51 units. How much is a unit? 2% of my beginning bankroll. That's 102% ROI, just for picking 55% winners against the spread. And that's without raising the bet size along the way and without compounding. Spoiler alert, just by using the Miller flat betting system with that above sequence I just mentioned, would have generated 145% ROI with 55% wins. The next video you should watch is Follow the Money. No, don't click here. This is just a picture. The link is down below. It's the very first thing you see in the description section. Follow the Money goes hand in hand with this video. It's also about bankroll management, and it covers the components of the VIG, the break-even percentage, and sham bankroll management systems like the Kelly criterion, also known as the kamikaze criterion, and the martingale system and others. Lots of bad advice out there. Also, you should watch my video, Brainwashed Sports Bettors. The link is down below in the description section. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please tell me in the comments below what you learned or what you'd like more information on. Please subscribe and like and turn on notifications. Until next time, no jiggling, everyone. Leave those bet sizes alone. Thank you and good luck.